Let's just cut to the chase. Is Trump going to usher in a new era of prosperity and innovation? Or is he going to be the one standing in the center ring when the circus tent comes down? Remember, some voted for Trump as a political Molotov cocktail. Trump is a businessman, you say. He's going to make things happen. Cut taxes, cut regulation, invest $1 trillion in infrastructure, including a ginormous wall, punish companies that move factories overseas, rebuild the military, restore relations with Russia, start a trade war with China, and a new arms race would create jobs. There's a lot to unpack there, and those debates are worth having. However, much of this hinges on a variable that Trump doesn't control: the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve has held interest rates at near zero for close to a decade. They also engaged in quantitative easing from 2009 to 2014, accumulating $4.5 trillion worth of mortgage-backed securities and treasury notes. This inflated stock and bond market bubbles of historic proportions. When a friendly face is in the White House, crashes are typically attributed to a war, terrorist attack, or some other external variable. A Trump presidency, however, is an excuse in and of itself. Word is the Fed is leaning towards increasing interest rates aggressively in 2017 and may engage in anti-inflationary measures to offset Trump's infrastructure stimulus plans. That means that the flow of money and credit is about to be tightened. It also means the Fed is setting itself up for a showdown. If Trump plays by the rules, he'll have to wait till 2018 to replace Janet Yellen. A lot can happen within that time frame.
The United States can pay any debt it has because we can always print money to do that.
We have a privately owned central bank system disguised as a government-owned system.
There is no other agency of government which can overrule actions that we take. There is no other agency of government which can overrule actions that we take. The United States can pay any debt it has because we can always print money to do that.
Senator Dorgan has spoke out on the secrecy of the Federal Reserve System. There is no entity in the world that controls our lives more than the Federal Reserve System. What the Federal Reserve Board does, nobody knows what they're doing.
Who actually made that decision to hand out $1 trillion that way, $500 billion? Who made that decision?
The Federal Open Market Committee.
All right, well, the Constitution says no money shall be drawn from the Treasury but in consequence of appropriations made by law.
This money is not drawn from the Treasury.
We can always print money.
Is it safe to say that nobody in 1913 contemplated that your small little group of people would decide to hand out $500 billion to foreigners?
There is no other agency of government which can overrule actions that we take.
What the Federal Reserve Board does, nobody knows what they're doing.
We can always print money. We can always print money. The United States can pay any debt it has because we can always print money to do that.
Let's say the United States needs money. Instead of issuing their own United States notes backed by their own credit, they issue treasury bonds. They then sell these bonds to the Federal Reserve, which buys them with money they created out of thin air. The money that the Fed created then goes to the U.S. The U.S. then pays interest on the money that the Fed lent to the Treasury. So to clarify, the Fed creates money from nothing, loans that money to the U.S., and then charges interest on that money. What this means is that there is never and will never be enough money in circulation or in existence to pay back that debt. We as a country, as well as private citizens, are forever enslaved by debt with no way of ever paying it off. Now, when the Federal Reserve buys bonds on Wall Street, the major financial firms that have been selected as dealers deposit the proceeds at their own banks. Fed rules require banks to keep 10% of their deposits in reserves, but the bank is free to issue loans equal to the remaining 90%. Let's say the Federal Reserve buys a $1,000 bond. After putting away 10% into their reserves, they are then able to loan out 90%, or $900. Since the original $1,000 is still on deposit, the $900 in loan proceeds is more new money, money created out of nothing. A total of $1,900 of new money is now available in the economy. Now the person that took the $900 loan spends that money. The payee then deposits the $900 into their bank account, and once again, reserves and deposits increase. This process goes on until that original $1,000 bond, which was created from nothing, becomes $10,000, making this one full-fledged debt machine while also devaluing the dollar. The more money that is out in the economy, the more the value decreases. There's no wonder that since the implementation of the Federal Reserve in 1913, the dollar has lost over 95% of its value. The US dollar will eventually be destroyed due to an overwhelming financial crisis, and a globalist-run monetary authority will come along to save the day. And much like the Fed pretends that its goal is to prevent another Great Depression, the global currency will pledge to prevent another financial crisis, thus putting more power into the hands of a few and enslaving humanity that much more.